inside me, there are those very dark figures. They are very cold, very arrogant, very stubborn, and pretty destructive. Those are my saboteurs. Well, you still have time to leave. It's too uncomfortable for you to get to know them. But luckily and thankfully, there's also a very empathetic, very curious side of me, full of creativity and possibility, which is my sage self. The question is, why am I telling you this? Because over the past few years, I've become more and more aware of this internal battle in my mind between my saboteurs and my sage. And the truth is, each one of us is living the same battle. And how you show up in it determines everything, your performance, your relationships, and how along the way are you feeling joyful or draining. So what I'm about to share today is going to help you to spot those forces inside you. And I'm going to show you how to, shift the balance toward the more positive side. Yet my true understanding of those forces began with the biggest failure of my career. It was back to early 2021, more than 4 years ago. I landed my dream job in a top electric vehicle company in China as a lean expert to improve their vehicle project management processes. It was a perfect match to my experience and expectations. So I was like all in, full of passion. And fast forward a year later, it was a Monday morning around 10 a.m. I stepped into my manager's office for a one-to-one. And as I sat in front of her, I heard her said, "Hi, Fang, how do you feel like you can fit in?" I thought, oh, that was a weird question. Yes, I was going through some major pushback from my teammates. And I thought the environment was so toxic. And it was so hard for me to push the work through. And then I heard her said, "Hi, Fang, we don't believe there's a fit between you and the company culture, so we've decided to end your employment here." And right there, I was fired. Until I realized it, it felt like a bomb exploded in my mind, slow motion. I was shocked. And then furious, I feel betrayed. And then came this shame, this deep paralyzing shame. I couldn't help but asking, did I do something wrong? What was the problem? Well, to be fair, my manager, she did mention that it was not all about me. The company was going through some major organizational issues. Yet none of that stopped me from spiraling this self-doubt and self-sabotage status. For 6 months, I replayed every moment and tried to figure out what was the root cause of it, of course in vain. It only drove me further down the dark hole, and I lost all confidence in the field I had so much passion. And in the middle of that chaos and darkness, there was only one question that caught my attention. It was, but I found, how can you turn this failure into an opportunity? And that question came from Sharad and his positive intelligence team. I had come across Sharad's work while I was in US. I read his book, I watched his TED Talk, I even joined his PQ program for coaches. And I knew he had spent decades studying how we self-sabotage ourselves under stress. And his research reveals that the key lies in this powerful question, and it is, how can we turn any outcome into a gift or an opportunity? The answer then became the foundation of the strategies to win this internal battle between our saboteurs and our sage self. But of course, during that dark period of time, I didn't believe a word of it, what you're talking about, because I was all negative and I was in saboteur hijacking mode. But what if it was this little whisper of sage that caught my attention. There are different researches, but they all show that the negative voices in our mind, our saboteurs, are trying to answer just one question. It is to survive and to succeed, what do I need to do? And those voices, our saboteurs, are then wired into our brain since childhood. They once protected us, but now they hold us back. We each one grows up differently, and we each develop our own mix of saboteurs. But there's one saboteur we all share. It is the judge. It's the inner critic who attacks you and others relentlessly. Looking back now, I can see it very clearly. As the pressure and work grow, my judge went into full attack mode, and I believe every word of it. It said to me, "You're failing. You're not working hard enough, and you're so incompetent here. You gotta figure it out." And then it turned outward. Well, that person is so naive. That one is hopeless, and that one couldn't even describe the problem properly. Why did my judge attack others? Because as a child, my survival strategy was simple. If I am the only failure, it's unbearable, but if we all fail together, I can survive. And beyond the judge, Shiraz and his team identified nine other accomplice saboteurs, including controller. There's a right way to do everything, and it is my way. Hyperachiever. My worth depends on that success. And restless. There must be something more exciting out there. Like a stickler. The mug better be exactly there. What else? Pleaser. I have to make others happy no matter what. And hypervigilant. Danger is everywhere, so I have to be vigilant 24/7. Avoider. I'll just grab a cup of coffee and deal with it later. And victim. Why does this always happen to me? And hyper-rational. Let's solve this like a machine. Emotions are irrelevant. You get ideas, right? It's such a cast of characters. And for me, my top accomplice saboteur is hyper-rational. You know, when things got tough, I clung to logic and facts and shut out emotions. It made me seem arrogant, disconnected, cold, even though deep down I am a very sensitive person. You know, a few months into the role, I noticed a growing resistance from my colleagues, and it bothered me deeply. So I even initiated a 360-degree feedback survey. I will never forget what one senior colleague said to me. He said, "I found, you know, your biggest problem is you don't care." He gave me that feedback, like very sincerely. And I said back to him, said, "Yeah, thank you for your feedback. You're right. I don't care, because I thought the negative emotions were just a noise. Why should I care if we're just chasing results?" That was me, blind to my own arrogance, convinced that logic could solve everything. And when the controller saboteur kicked in, it only made it worse. You know, the more chaos there was, the more I intend to micromanage. You know, people who didn't report to me said I was overstepping, and people who did report to me said, "Oh, they just give up. You know, why put up the fight? I found he's always right." So they follow orders, but gave no heart. I was exhausted at a certain point of time, and I couldn't stop wondering why nobody moved until I pushed them. The truth is, when the judge, the hyper-rational and controller took over, I was already trapped in a downward spiral, and I didn't even know it. I know some of you might say, "Wow, but saboteurs help me succeed. I need them." Yes, they can push you to results. But at what cost? Reflecting back, sure, being judgmental, you know, hyper-rational and controlling did help me deliver. But it drained my emotional energy, killed connection with my colleagues, and except for 5 minutes of happiness when I see the results, I was feeling miserable all along the way. And when you fail on something important, you know, as a human being, we will one day or another. And the saboteurs want to convince you it was bad. But your sage self knows there's always an opportunity in any outcome. So the saboteur way is never the true way to success. They pretend to help you, but in the end, it always costs you more. So we have our online saboteur assessment in 5 minutes. We'll help you to uncover your top saboteurs, because, you know, to weaken the saboteurs, you gotta expose them first, label them when they're active. Notice this when you say, "Oh, I'm such a loser." And comparing, you say, my judge said I'm such a loser. You notice the difference? Once you label them, instantly will reduce their grip on you. So what is the opposite side of the saboteur voices? It's the sage voice. And your sage self will ask, how can you turn this into an opportunity? So even though you didn't have any clue into the time, but it immediately shifts your brain toward positivity. And from there, you will have access to 5 sage powers, include empathize, explore, innovate, navigate, and activate. Well, I'm not going to elaborate on those sage powers, but in my case, what seemed to be a big failure at the time then became the foundation for deeper self-awareness and connection. I always know that I am sensitive and emotional beneath the logic and order I try to maintain, and I thought I was flawed to have those negative emotions, and I have to hide that side of me from others. But now I know that I am just being a human, and we are just being humans, and I have deep empathy toward myself and others, and from that empathy I have much better relationships now. For instance, with my husband, I used to feel so frustrated with him because each time when I try to talk with him about something, for example, how to improve our parenting skills, and he would explode right away, shut down, and refuse to talk to me. And I felt so frustrated. I just couldn't understand why. Because for us as lean thinkers, continuous improvement, right? We can talk about anything. But then I discovered his top saboteur is stickler. Through this explore the sage power, I then realized it was because he holds incredibly high standards for himself for whatever he is doing. So my improvement suggestions felt more like a criticism to him rather than collaboration. No wonder he got defensive, right? He was doing everything he could to avoid the blame. Once I understood that through Innovate Power, I instantly changed my approach. And now, whenever I want to talk with him about something, I always start by really appreciating what he has done for me, for the family. And just like that, it was like magic. He would open up and he would even want to do more. It works like every time. So please don't tell my husband that I have this trick on him. But this shift from saboteur to sage only happens when your sage brain muscles are very strong. Like when you try to lift up something, you gotta have, muscles, right? Neuropsychologists using functional MRI, they discovered a very simple but powerful way to train your sage brain muscle, which is to focus your attention on one of your physical sensations. So rather than explaining it, I want to invite you all to experience it with me right now. So I want you to take 2 of your fingers like this, okay? Please do it with me. And gently rub 2 fingertips against each other with such attention that you can feel the fingertip ridges on both fingers. Okay, so that was about 10 seconds of PQ reps. And it helps to quiet your saboteur survival brain and activate your sage brain a little bit. And the beauty of it is you can do it anytime, anywhere, on anything. Well, with that being said, we've come to the closure part of my sharing. So to wrap up, here are the 3 strategies I just shared to help you to win this internal battle between your saboteurs and the sage. And number 1 is, know your saboteurs. Catch them and label them when they are active. And number 2, you can command your brain to stop and do a few PQ reps like we just did. And number 3 is to ask yourself, how can I turn this into a gift or an opportunity? This is our sage perspective. And those 3 tools have been my compass for the past 3 years, and they will keep guiding me in the foreseeable future. Let's all reclaim our human strength underneath the saboteurs and turn every challenge into a chance to grow as a lean leader.